Talent assessment, we keep hearing about this. Yeah. Uh, Last year there was something different. This year it is also different, and we don't know what will happen after 3 months, 6 months. Our priority keeps changing. Currently, we are focusing more on health, mental health, and wellness. And tomorrow it may be something else, but business will go on. That is a fundamental rule, right? And who will run the business? It's only our people. It's only our talent. And how they do, what they do, when they do, that's what we need to take care. We need to provide all the support, logistic, ecosystem, tools, and we're talking about the virtually. So there are topics which we are going to cover is about hybrid model, remote working, employee experience, employee engagement, reskill, upskill, collaboration tool, communication. List goes on, list goes on. But yes, it keeps changing time to time. As I said today, for every organization, the priority is, guys, how can I ensure that all employees get the vaccination? So we are able to resume the work either in office or maybe virtually, but our employees should be safe. That is the basic objective. But yes, besides that, they should be working, and work is dependent upon the skills, knowledge, and other things. Okay, so how the schedule is going to be like I will not share right now, but I will hand over to my partner Armazo team, Navjeet and Anubhav. We have interesting uh, schedule lineup. Okay, before we start the panel discussion, I've been talking to Navjeet. Navjeet has been talking to me. How do we do the webinar, and how do we do some kind of packaging so that it became more interesting? And Armazo keep doing a lot of survey. They did it last year. I will not talk much about it. They are also into gamification and all. So Navjeet, I will hand over to you, talk about it. Please let us know what is there for us, and then we will start the panel discussion after your speech. Okay, you need to unmute. Please check. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashish, for the lovely introduction there. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for taking the time out of their busy schedule to be there with us and to share your experiences on managing the employees in your organization. Thank you to all the participants again. To be there with us. I hope you will have a great learning experience, and from the starlets of the industry here. And I also want to thank Ashish, HR Shapers, to partner with us for doing this particular webinar. As the topic is very close to our heart and company also as such, because we at Armazo are about a 10-year-old company providing assessment and survey solutions to over 100 plus companies today. So we have seen talent management, talent assessment, how it's been done over the years of 10 years, and how the processes and approaches have changed over the years. Of course, last 1.5 years has been really disrupting. Many new things have been done, and a lot of innovative things have been done. So we've seen this assessment industry also across 10 years now. Even as a part of the solutions, we also try to innovate ourselves and provide different services. So we launched our first game-based assessment platform called Gamizo, where we are trying to innovate all the assessment processes into more gamified, more engagement way, and to overcome the traditional methods of doing assessment. So that's what we do as an organization. Last year, to get an in-depth analysis of how COVID has affected the companies and how companies are working towards our more engaging employees and assessing and upskilling and reskilling, we conducted this survey on assessment, where over 80 companies participated. A lot of good insights which came out of this survey, and we shared this with the HR fraternity all across the world. And this encouraged us that it's already been 1 year now. We want to analyze how companies are now viewing their employees, how they are changing their processes, what they have done in last 1 year, how they are looking at future there, and then we said it's the right time to do this survey again, and partnering with HR Shapers would give us more wider audience to be present, so that we can get a lot of data, meaningful data to share with the HR fraternity here. So we'll be sharing this survey link on chat, and also after the survey, after the webinar, probably tomorrow or Monday morning, we'll send an email to everyone there, and we will sharing the end report and web findings to all of you once the survey has been done. So this is from me. Thank you so much, and I'm sure this is going to be a great learning experience, not for participant, but as Navjeet and as Armaizo also. So happy learning, everyone. Over to you, Ashish. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Navjeet. So that was so quick, and we look forward to participate in the survey. HR Shaper proudly and happy to partner with us. So all the delegates, those who are joined, I can see the number around 140 as of now. More are joining. Please participate in the survey. Navjeet will share the link. Okay, and you will also get a mail to participate in the survey. You can share within your HR community, business community, and because last year it was something different. Last year when lockdown started, we were all talking about the employee engagement, right? Then we end up talking something else in the month of December, because it was supposed kind of opened up and all, but then we gone back to drawing board, and now we are looking at the priorities now. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is Ashish Gakre from HR Shaper. I'm founder of HR Shaper. I welcome all the panelists now. So let me introduce each one of you, and let me share the format. So how the format is going to be for next, it is 11:40 right now. So for next 30 minutes, we will have opening remark from each one of you for maximum 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, and then we'll have 2-3 round of question and answer session. Okay, moderated by me, and then we will take question from the audience. All the audience, keep writing in the chat box what's your views on the topic and other things. Yeah, please keep interacting with each one of us. The speaker can also answer any question in between if they want to. Please interact with the audience. Thank you so much. Okay, so here is first is Jayanti Anil Kumar, whom I know since last, if I'm not wrong, maybe close to 10 years. And it has been great association with Jayanti. She is based in Chennai, and she is right now SVP HR Head, Eastern Chart GBS, which is Global Business Services, if I'm not wrong, right? And she has been working with the same company since last 20 years. The company which was known as a Scope, right? She started with the Scope, correct? Yeah. So thank you, Jayanti. Your introduction is very short because only one company. Okay. Thanks for serving in the Standard Chartered. Okay, great. And the next panelist we have Rosemin Paul. She is Head Talent and Development with Schneider. She has a total 14 years of experience. She worked in company like Tata Motors, and since 2019 she has been with the current company, and with Tata Motors she was there in 2007. Yeah, that was Rosemin Paul joining from Schneider. Then we have Ashish Mittal joining from Delhi. Okay, and he is head of people function Aviva India, which is into life insurance, right? And he has a total of 9 year experience. He was with the Bank of America since 2011 and joined this company in 2014. Thanks, Ashish. And the last is Chela Pandian Pichai, very close friend of me. Again, I know him since last 10 years. He keep roaming in Southeast Asia. Currently, he is based in Malaysia, eager to come to India. He's going to be in Bangalore, if I'm not wrong, right? So he is a head talent learning and organization transformation with Biocon Biologics, which is part of the Biocon Very Commerce company. Total more than 25 years of experience. Okay, since 92 he was in Biocon, and then he joined Jubilant for 4 years, then MSD 9 years, and then he came back to Biocon Group April 2020. Yeah, so great journey. And if I see, it's overall 75 years of experience if I calculate each one of you. So I think it's going to be great conversation. Yeah, and if I come back to the topic, which we are going to touch upon about the talent acquisition, talent management, talent engagement, experience, then how the future of work look like, how do we reskill, upskill, what is the priorities right now, how we are going to work in hybrid environment, the workforce planning, collaboration tool, optimization, productivity. Yeah. Please keep sharing beside this also what's your views, how you're doing, how you're supposed to do it, and how the industry should do, right? So let me start. I will always start with ladies first. So there'll be a opening remark from Jayanti, followed by Rosmin. Then we will go to Chela. Then last would be Ashish. Yeah. Yes, Jayanti, we can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish, and good morning, everyone. So at the outset, I really want to thank Armezo, Navjeet, and you, Ashish, for making this possible. Yeah, because when I look back at the last 12 to 14 months of how our life has been at large, personally for me, one of the biggest aspects I genuinely miss is that social element of what used to be an integral part of our lives. In fact, when I remember the last interaction we had, Ashish, similar panel at the HR conclave, we were all sitting and interacting face to face in a large hall. So that is how all of these interactions and conversations used to be in the past. And all of a sudden we are stuck in a room. I'm stuck in this bedroom of mine for the last 14 months. And I think almost all of us are in very, very similar situations. So, but then while we feel extremely sad about that, on the other end, I think we should be really thankful to technology and to people like you for making this possible. If not for technology and all of these applications, life would have almost come to a standstill. So life still goes on a lot virtually, but then we have been working, we have been interacting even in such a situation, and that is thanks to technology. So Ashish and Armezo, thank you once again for organizing this and also inviting me to the panel. So thank you very much. I would like to start with that. Now, coming back to the topic, I think one of the most favorite topics for anyone in this fraternity, right? We are talking extensively about talent, performance management, workforce planning, and everything to do with people, because we are kind of moving into an unknown territory, I would say. None of us really know how we're going to operate in a hybrid model, in a remote working environment. This period of the last 14 months has largely been almost, I would call BCP. You don't have another option, so you kind of adopted a particular methodology of work. But then this is kind of opening up a lot of avenues and permanent changes in the way we work. Yeah. So let me share some perspectives. Now, when we look at the last 14 months, which is largely the pandemic period, on one end, I think it has been extremely traumatic for almost all of us. I don't think there will be anyone who is even attending this panel today who would not have lost a near or dear one. It's kind of taken such a big toll on our lives. We have been dealing with something we have never ever dealt thus far as this generation of the human race. It has been, and all of a sudden it kind of just hit us one fine day. And we've been dealing with that over the last 14 months. And for those of us in HR, the impact is almost double, right? Because on one end, we have our families, our the close circle, which is around us. And on the other end, we have our colleagues we are responsible for as well. So it's been extremely challenging. And if I were to look at my career over the last 23 odd years, I can very easily say that this has been the most challenging part of my career. So that is on one end. Yeah, so that is the difficult, the traumatic part of what this pandemic has been, and we really don't know when that real end to this is going to come. So that's on one end. But when we look at it from another perspective, there are different perspectives, right? So the other end, I think we are probably at a time, and personally, I feel this phase has kind of given me immense opportunities. To me, it's like giving me a blank canvas and some very, very vibrant colors and empowering me to just paint the way I wish to make that painting. That level of empowerment, that level of thinking, the ability to think out of that box, in my view, was never there in the past. We were bound by a lot of predetermined notions, the way in which organizations used to operate. And we were bound by a lot of those when decisions were taken. To bring in something which is very, very new or an out of the box thinking meant it would mean probably months and years of debate even before we could implement something. Whereas today, I think each of us have got that empowerment to really think differently, really be creative, because we are treading into something, into a real unknown. None of us have experimented. We are all learning as we speak. And in that journey, few organizations could be faster in implementing certain things. Few organizations could watch and learn. But then I think that option to be absolutely creative is something which I really see as a positive in the situation. And that creativity touches all aspects of an employee life cycle. It's not restricted to talent acquisition or assessment or performance management, but it kind of touches that entire life cycle and every single organization. So that to me is the biggest opportunity which each one of us have. And as an organization at Standard Chartered, we have started to think very, very differently in a manner that we've never done in the past. And we will, of course, talk more about it when Ashish starts opening up the questions. But then it's a very exciting period where you're not limited by any of the predetermined notions. And that, to me and for all of us in the HR fraternity, I think is a great place to be in. And to build on that, I think all these kind of conversations, learning from each other, learning from what each one is doing in his or her organization, I think will add a lot of value in how we build our organizations into the future. So that's the way I look at it, Ashish. So let me pause here and then hear from the others as well. Then we'll go into questions. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, Jayanti. So, HR always had a difficult task earlier. How do we ensure that we are closer to human being? Yeah. And today, when we tell how are you doing, it has a meaning actually. Earlier, okay, it was just coming out of the formalities, and when people also say I'm doing fine, this itself also has a meaning, right? And actual destruction taking in a big way, yeah. And HR job became more challenging actually. Okay, so I go to the second panelist. Rosmin, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish, and thank you, Jayanti, for a wonderful start to today's agenda. I think I completely resonate with what Jayanti has mentioned, that don't look at the pandemic with only a negative lens, but look at it with a positive lens of how it has thrown upon so many opportunities to all of us. Turn back the clock 18 months prior to today, the pre-COVID era. Future of work was something we all talked about as something that was yet to come upon us, but inevitably be here someday. And I still remember, every conversation, every round table, all conferences that we attended. This was one of the prime topics discussed in the forefront: future of work, the competencies for future, how do we prepare ourselves and get ready our talent for future. But actually what has happened with us is that with the pandemic scenario coming in last year, all of that changed in one instant. And we are not just talking about the future of work, but it actually dawned upon us suddenly when we were not prepared for it. So what the pandemic has really done is that it has changed the very landscape of what we call as work. Traditionally, when we thought about work, We spoke about organized work. We had hierarchies in the organization. We had centrally coordinated work, 9 to 5 kind of jobs, defined skill sets, defined workstations. But today, with the pandemic, I think all of us had to be prepared for a virtual workstation. And the forces that are at play today are completely destroying forever many of the old assumptions of a traditional job and career. The old outdated hierarchies are crumbling on one hand. There is no longer a 9 to 5 working. In fact, people who thought that 9 to 5 jobs only exist and work from home is a myth, I think had to burst that myth. And increasingly, from a positive lens, what it has brought forth is that many people who were disadvantaged in the past, for whatever reasons, will now have an opportunity to be a part of the global talent pool. When you look at the traditional jobs and careers of the past, some of them would have been very constraining and frustrating. But yes, they did bring in a measure of predictability. But today, instead of the monotony and annoying inflexibility of the past, each of us has greater opportunities and a lot of choice. And each of us has the opportunity to actually write a personal career script, which brings fulfillment and meaning. Now, what do all these changes mean for each of us as HR fraternity, as an employee, as an employer? It has both upsides and downsides. In this discussion, I'm really looking forward to look at the way the HR perspective has changed. How do you really design the organization for the future in the new normal, that is the post-COVID era? Today, HR is facing a lot of expectations. There's work environment changing on one hand. On the other hand, the employee expectations from the employer as well as the HR or their line managers are changing. And therefore, I think it is imperative for all of us as HR leaders to really examine constantly, how we need to do workforce planning. What should be the emerging skills? What is the impact of technology that is suddenly wading through? And above all, the employee experience, because today your employee is no longer sitting in the four walls of an office, but how do you provide employee experience remotely is a big challenge that all of us in HR have. And on one hand, you have the challenge of planning for future talent needs, enabling automation, enabling AI adoption within the organization at a fast pace. And on the other hand, how do you really support gig work and other emerging employment models that are coming because of the COVID concerns? And the challenge now for all of us is to really define an organization process, an organization structure to really manage this technologically driven workforce. There are different employment models. There are different organization structures. And how do you really enable employee experience to seamlessly flow through this? While you also support data security, while you also create collaboration tools. And this is what we'll be actually getting into today. Thank you so much, Ashish, for the opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion with this esteemed panel.
Thank you, Rosalind. So, it's bringing us too close to human being. Again, I would say more than business contingency plan, we need to have people contingency plan, right? Employee became a family. Today, we start asking, okay, how's your mother, father, spouse, kids doing, right? More than the employee, actually, more than, talent, right? Okay, so we are joined by Dr. TV Rao. He doesn't need any introduction. We will get to hear from him. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rao, being with us. And I go to Chela here. Chela, over to you for opening remark.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ashish. And I'd like to start saying thanks for inviting me here. And also thanks to Navjit for the initiative which you're taking along with the HR shapers to bring the HR folks together. And it's a great initiative. So thank you, Jayanti and Rospin, for a wonderful start. And I completely resonate with what you say in terms of this being the challenging stage for many HR reasons, what we all know, which is very evident. So when I reflect, there are two thoughts comes to my mind in terms of is there a need for a change? And is this change we are talking for the first time, or there has been always change required in the way we evolve? I would say that the change was always looked at. And if you see, we've been talking about Industrial Revolution 3.0, 4.0, there was a technology disrupting. So the disruption was already happening. So it is not suddenly the leaders have realized the need for change. But I see the pandemic has created an opportunity for us to accelerate the change and take a decision whether we want to change or we wanted to just keep it status quo. This is an option again. And the reason I'm saying is there are four things is changing now or changed in the last year, right? Work, workplace, workforce, and work culture. So all these four has an impact. So what's happening in the work? Let's look at all these four for a few minutes. Work is changing because the way we looked at our strategy, earlier pivoting was an option, right? It's a plan B is what we call it as pivot. Today, pivot has become a part of your way of operating, right? So you could have one standard operating model earlier and then say, this is what I want, this is my long-term plan in the way we operate. Today, operating models are so much changing, and you can't fix an operating model and just get stuck to the model because it's changing. And even the business, when we look at last year, I was in a strategy role. The way we were strategizing is become short-term focused. And whilst you could have a long-term strategy, which is important for an organization, but that is more subjective. Objectively, when we strategize, we started becoming opportunistic in terms of the need for today. Let's take pharma industry, right? Vaccine was an opportunity, right? And you saw a lot of contract manufacturing picked up this as a new model for producing the vaccines for the immediate needs. And the innovator companies started looking at it as a great opportunity for an admit disease, right? So they needed to bring a new way of doing things. And it used to take 15 years, about 20 years back, to bring a drug to market. From the time a conceptualizing to bring a drug to the market, it took 15 solid years to get the drug. A pill which we popped, it always meant that it was 15 years. And it came down to 12 years because of technology. The last 15 years, you would see the technology has enabled us to get the pill within 10 to 12 years. But today we saw that happening within a year. The vaccine was already in the market, and we are taking it, and we're all appreciating the speed. So what changed? If the same operating model they stuck to, we wouldn't have brought the vaccines. We wouldn't have seen the vaccines within less than 10 months. So that's changing. I'm just taking a pharma as an example. I'm sure every industry is changing. That's work. Workforce. As a corporate, we see in a different lens, right? It's all about managing our employees, our workforce, and keeping the continuity. As Ashish rightly said, business continuity plan is moving towards people continuity plan. So how do we ensure that our employees are engaged and our employee, like Jayanti said, it's about double the impact, family side, friend circle, and at the office, every day sharing stories, which really we consume the impact. But beyond that, workforce is changing in terms of whether we need to continue with the same model or we need to change the model. Can we operate? Gig economy is booming, and it will be all the more the need for our need of the hour, because we are into a different working model now. So workforce is changing, and people now they've got used to work from home. And a question which we all have to ponder is, there may be many who want to operate like this even after pandemic, right? Maybe it's a preference. There are people who are introverts, probably they're comfortable working from home. There are people who are not comfortable, they want to be in office setup. So we need to see what's the model which will work. And sure, organizations are going to rethink the way they want to start. Workplace is changing, and it's going to be not same, because a lot of offices have been closed, and at least in some industries we see they wanted to come out of this operational expenses, which is becoming very high in terms of two things. One, the investment on offices, campuses, is it really required? If you could operate 1 year without coming to office, then it means there is an operating model can be reimagined. And the second is also people looking at in terms of workforce, whether we need a permanent workforce, can the gig workforce be leveraged much more than how it was in the past? Lastly, work culture, right? Here I have a difference of thoughts, because a lot of people say it's difficult and it has not been there. Work from home is not easy. It is not tested. And maybe 1 year because of pandemic, we all forced to do. but I have a different insights to provide. Work from home is not new, and it is not, it's new for some organizations, some industry, but it is not new. Last 20 years, we see the technology companies have already moved into this to larger extent, right? I worked for work from home for many, many years, right? The reason I was in a global role, the global role, no way you can have, my manager was in Canada. So I never met him, right? And I moved out of the role. So, and then I was operating from lounges, and I'm sure all of you have stories to talk about you operating from lounges, right? And if you're in a traveling job, then all the more you're not, you're home based. So that is one. And the regional roles are always like this, the technology enabled, because we could connect with people only through the video calls or audio calls. So that model is now expanding into even a country roles. So that is one. Look at pharma. Pharma was never been in the model of working from office, especially pharma. Manufacturing is other extreme, where you have to be on the plant to work because you're depending on the equipments and the huge machineries. But the pharma, in the sales and marketing organization, if you look at, sales reps were always operating from home, not now, 100 years. So the work from home model was actually pioneered by pharma industry, which many people do not know. The sales reps for the last 5 decades or more than that typically get up in the morning, go and meet a doctor, and after meeting doctor, they'll come back to their house and they'll report their work in the system or whichever the tool they have. They meet their managers only when the manager come to the field, or once a month they will go to the regional office if they have a regional office. If they don't have a regional office, they will meet their managers in hotel. And then finally they come to the headquarters once a year. So work from home, a huge workforce is already doing it for more than 4 to 5 decades. And they have retained the culture. They have managed the workforce. They manage this model. Probably we could leverage some best practices from there and expand it if we need to change, right? So these are some of the thoughts I have, but I wanted to pause here and build more as we get into the question answers, or when we get into the moderation when Ashish is doing. Thank you, Ashish.
Sure. Thanks, Chela. So I'm picking up the culture part, and it reminds me of one, it's not a story, but it's a reality. Not let's assume, but, it's a reality, as I said, to large extent. If your son and daughter is going to study out of India for 2 years or 3 years, or maybe boarding school for 5 years, 7 years, we have seen, right? That happen in some families. So that son and daughter forget the most of the values, culture of the home, correct? And here we are talking about where people are joining virtually, online. And I have seen some people joining virtually, living virtually. They have never seen the workplace. They've never seen, the standing of the values, the culture, we keep seeing on the, cafeteria and the passage and also. So I don't know. I mean, it's a big, huge challenge either for HR or CEO to ensure that, how do we really ensure that culture has to be there now? Yeah. It has to be redefined in a different way. Virtually, how do we ensure that culture should be there, right? Leadership understand, but those who are new joiners, how do we take care of those people? Yeah. Okay, so I go to the last panelist, but yes, Dr. Rao is also there. So here to Ashish. Yeah.
Thanks. First of all, thanks Navjeet, and thanks Ashish for inviting me for this panel. Thank you so much. What I heard from Roshni, Jayanti, and Chela, I think absolutely lovely remarks to start with, a lot of which I could relate to directly, and a lot of learnings, some new things that I heard just now. I think absolutely great to hear from all of you. So I wouldn't want to repeat anything that the 3 panelists have already said, but there are 2-3 things that I want to add on. First and foremost, when you look at HR theories and HR literature over the last 100 years that has been produced mostly for people who are working with you, in front of you, probably in a confined space or a office or a building or a factory. It's only in the early 2000s, as Chela has also mentioned, that we started seeing some literature, some theories, and some practices being evolved for people who are probably not in front of you directly, or you will be on phone, or you will be on screen. But that too mostly was, it wasn't forced. It was because you were working from different country and you had to include that one person or those couple of people into your workforce and engage him, right? So 95% of our theories and our practices and our literature is not equipped to deal with what we are facing now. That's first thing that we need to acknowledge and accept as HR fraternity, that we will have to do a lot of experimentation now. So do not forget and do not fear this experimentation, because we will learn from each other. We will learn from each other's mistakes. We will learn from each other's experiment. And that's the only way move forward. And we will be creating theories and practices and literature going forward in next 2 to 3 years, as pandemic is looking like it's becoming endemic, as we see. That's my first point. Second point is something that I personally feel very passionate about, is that we assume a lot of things around what our customer wants or what our employees wants from us, and that assumption leads to the changes or the initiative that we do around learning or reskilling, upskilling, or anything else in the organization. I think it's the time where we stop assuming and start asking, and stop assuming anything that we know. Because as I said, literature has become redundant. Today, an employee is forced to sit in the front of the screen, while he may have wanted a work from home earlier, but he only wanted it for a couple of days in a month or a 1 day in a week. But now he's forced to sit in the same chair in the home in front of a screen, and it's not his choice. It's forced upon him. So now what he wants from the organization has completely changed. So instead of assuming what they want, let's start asking what they want. And you will have a lot of answers coming in straight away, which you can now experiment with. I think that's my second point. And obviously, we will learn as we go. My third and the last point that I want to make is, as we go into this workforce change, workforce and work space change rather, we will see boundaries diminishing. These boundaries have started to diminish within the country now. It doesn't matter whether I'm based in Delhi or Mumbai or Chennai or Kuala Lumpur for that matter. Even if I was talking to my colleagues in Delhi itself, it would have felt the same that now I'm feeling with all 6 of you in front of me, or all 8 of you in front of me. It's going to feel the same. So these boundaries are going to get blurred. And these boundaries are going to get blurred in different countries also very soon, which means the laws of the nation or the country will have to really catch up. And we need to prepare before that happens. Today, we talked about gig economy. The reason why gig economy is flourishing in most of the countries, and India has been fast but comparatively very slow, is because our laws don't allow us to work in 2 different companies, draw PF from 2 different companies, work for 2 days in one company and 3 days in one company, and probably be it. We're still far away from that point where I can work for 5 days for Aviva and in a month, and 10 days for Schneider in a month, and take salary from both the companies. I think we're still far away from that point. And it is going to come just like this pandemic has come, because people today are skillful. They don't want to leave their homes. And as I think Chela mentioned, very important thing. They think for introverts, it's becoming a boon, right? So I'm liking it. If I'm an introvert, I don't have to go anywhere to meet anyone. I do my work, speak to them over the screen, and that's about it, right? But this pandemic will force, if it continues like this for another 2-3 years, will force a lot more introverts. Because it's not going to be natural for people to go out and greet as we were used to doing it. And as Jayanti said, we are used to socializing in office, right? When we go to office, it's not only about work, it's about meeting people, talking to them, having that coffee conversation in the pantry or near the water cooler. Those things are going away. People will not have this skill set. The people who are joining workforce now, and in next 2 to 3 years, they will not even know that this is also a skill set by which you understand how organizations function, or how managers or leaders understand what's happening in their shop floors or in their floors in offices or their area of work. And though they will never develop the skill set, and as in when they will become managers, they will have a completely different skill set. So we need to be very conscious of what are the new skill set, and obviously we will talk more about the skills and the training part of it. But this is the important point that we need to acknowledge and adhere to, that things are going to be different. So I think that's my opening remarks. I think just final one. Um, Winston Churchill once said, and I think this is a famous quote which we have seen multiple times, and it just resonates with me a lot. Like, never let a good crisis go to a waste. This is a crisis, and we are the ones in HR fraternity who are leading the business now as we speak, and we are the one who are going to lead the business in the future now. And this is the opportunity that HR fraternity cannot miss. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish. So crisis is very famous word, and crisis create opportunity. And if it has not created the opportunity, so we can assume there was no crisis. Great. And what I can pick up from your speech is, communicate, over communicate. That's the best way to give your message to all the audience, how to respond, how to react. That was coming all the way. Dr. TV Rao, please grace the occasion in case you are able to hear us, and please join us. We like to hear your opening remarks before I start Q&A session with panelists.
Well, thank you, Ashish. I feel I'm an intruder. I came here to learn from the panelists. First, I must compliment you for choosing such an excellent panel. Every word of whatever each one of the four speakers said, I am in tune with, I am in agreement with. The most important thing I like to pick up is we are going to have more integrated work and life, and redefine work and integrate it with life. And that is where I put up a little post saying that how do we now recognize cooking as also a part of work? Imagine a bachelor who is working from home, doesn't have anyone else, can't go out in pandemic time, he has to cook. So we're saying that we are expanding the work hours. In fact, long ago, Ricardo Semler said 7-day weekend. It's a very interesting kind of a young fellow who turned around his company, wrote a cartoons as a personal manual almost about 35-40 years ago, and later wrote very interesting kind of things. Now, this is a very thought-provoking thing. Now, I agree with many of them. I think the most important thing that we need to do at this point of time is to get organization to recognize. I am not very sure if organizations are going to become as hierarchy-less as they are appearing to be today. And it is the experience of youngsters. I'm so happy to note this. Now, how do we make organizations hierarchy-less and maintain whatever the advantages we have found? To learn to address everyone by first name, maybe, to learn to treat everyone with a new respect, irrespective of the age, designation, hierarchy, and so on. I think this is a solid benefit because coronavirus has shown no distinction between a daily wage laborer and the president of a country or company. I think this is the biggest kind of a thing that we have learned. But I'm not sure if companies who are still target driven, competition driven, one-upmanship driven, there are many of them, profit driven to nth degree, are they really willing to learn these lessons? And those who are seeing pandemic as a business opportunity, I am not very sure if they will come out of this hierarchical kind of a mindset and so on. But I still think that this is therefore our job to be change agents, HR people. If a large number of youngsters like the panelists today join the bandwagon and start saying, let us list down on a piece of paper, reflect and list down all the good things that have happened in the last 1.5 years, and maybe will happen also in the next 6 months. And how do we internalize this? And how do we create a new culture? There may not be, I think, as one of the speakers said, there may not be a need for any new culture. I think the culture is already there. For dogs years, we talked of a great culture in organizations is one where people feel free to express their views, openness, octopus, I have put it on the elaborated. The same thing in the family. Good families are the ones which follow octopus culture and so on. So my main recommendation is, since I'm so happy to find all the four speakers at the same wavelength, can we get our organizations to start thinking, reflecting, and consolidating what lessons we have learned, and then say that we don't want to come back to old kind of practices which are not functional. Continue with some of the old ones which are functional, but practice the new kind of a thing. Whether it is, I think the biggest thing is you have a choice of work, you have a choice of workplace, you have a choice to enjoy, you have a choice of number of hours you can work. If somebody says, I am happy to work only for about 6 hours in a day, I don't want to work more than this, I think I'll be willing to then go for that. Somebody says, I am willing to work for 14 hours, whatever, I think systems that you may work out and so on. I think there's a lot of gains, a lot of lessons, as many of them have said. I think we are still experimenting, but I think we should consolidate and articulate. And this is where my hope is the youth and young HR professionals who are leaders can bring in a lot of freshness into our thinking in the future. Thanks a lot, Ashish. I will continue to learn from the others. Now I'm not going to talk anymore. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So nice of you, Dr. Rao, and glad to hear your views inside. That's homework for us. Yes, some of the thing maybe already as a in progress or action plan need to work upon. Thank you so much. And when you talk about the migrant and laborer worker, this brought me to attention that maybe I think most of the panelists are from service industries where there is a luxury of remote working, right? But there are the industries who can't really work from home. There are the people, almost more than 50%, 70% can't work from home. So it's a big challenge for them to adopt, and how they are doing, how they have done it, it may be appreciated till now, how they are surviving, and, still business is on. So thanks. So we are done with opening remarks. Yes, I'm looking at the watch also. I need to compensate so that we finish it on time. Everybody has their own schedule after, panel discussion is over. That's 1 o'clock. So I'm dividing now panelists into two groups. So first group will be Jayanti and Chela. Second would be Rosmin and Ashish. And Jayanti, I was just sharing about the remote working. It's luxury for most of the industry that they can work from home, right? They can design even hybrid model. That's a luxury, right? Yeah. So my question is, one is in terms of we have seen attrition also is happening during the COVID. We have seen development is also happening during the COVID because it has to continue, right? Okay. So what's your views? It can go to both of you. What's your views in terms of talent development, talent acquisition, how to attract the talent, talent management in terms of if organization and workforce is more into remote and hybrid?
Sure. Thank you, Ashish. Great question. And so like I just started, Ashish, now this pandemic has opened up new avenues, right? And that new avenues is not restricted to any particular aspect of human resources. And the way I look at it, now Chela was talking about the fact that working from home is not a new concept for the human race. It is just that working from home was considered as a taboo for many industries. While we had many industries who were working perfectly well in that either a hybrid model or working from home, industries like ours, mainly the banking and financial sector, just assumed that it is impossible. And that if a request for a work from home came from a colleague, that went into multiple rounds of scrutiny. Because the initial reaction was it is not possible. Yeah. But then what happened? Overnight, we had to get people working from home. It was literally overnight, right? We had to ship laptops and desktops to the residences of people. And literally overnight, things started to work. So which forced a truth upon industries like ours, where we had to kind of acknowledge the fact that it is possible. So that is on one end. Now we have embraced that. So we know it is possible. We know that a hybrid model can function. So what did we do? We have now got to a stage where it is implemented, meaning giving people the option to choose work locations, which means essentially working from home or working from one of our office locations, working hours, like Dr. Rao said. because we all have constraints in our lives. So choosing a working hour take into account our work-life balance. So that as an option. Working days, the option to say that, you can only work 3 days a week. Of course, it will have an impact on your compensation, but that's the flexibility, which means you kind of attract a number of different segments into the workforce. A lot of people have left organizations like ours, either at the time of marriage, maternity, especially the women folks, because you just couldn't manage both. Today, you're telling them that you have the flexibility of workplace, you have the flexibility of working hours, you have the flexibility of working days. Now, with so much of flexibility, if somebody is not able to make it, then there is something fundamentally wrong. So what we are trying to do now is open up that avenues to a lot of other segments of people who couldn't have made use of these opportunities in the past. Leave that for a moment. How about people with disabilities? As an organization, we've been so much into diversity and inclusion, right? But then, was it easy? We have kind of changed our offices in a fashion that it suits people who have got some kind of a physical disability, but it's not easy. So this, in my view, opens up the doors to a lot of people with disabilities as well, because you can operate in the comfort of your own houses. How about opening up the doors to the other segments of people, the LGBTQ? That is another avenue as well. So I think it's immense opportunity to open it up for various segments of people. And of course, we will come to the gig economy in a bit. That's still to be explored, but that's another window of opportunity in my view. Yeah.
Thanks, Jayanti. So you being from multinational and India, I'm sure India is the largest headcount for your group. How much do you think hybrid will go for? Any percentage you like to share that how much percentage of workforce will go for a hybrid?
Already we have talked about close to 80% signing up for hybrid. So that is the appetite.
Oh, so everybody, please hear. This is already in the advanced speed, right? Okay, thanks, Jayanti, and this is really great insight. Sheila, so I repeat the question. This is more about the remote and hybrid model. You coming from international experience, worked in Southeast Asia and all, and there it's a no more reality. It was no more reality earlier even, right? So what's your views on this?
So just build on what Jayanti said. It again differs from industry to industry and leader to leader and country to country. So there are three categories we would see after pandemic. Either some organization would get into a hybrid model of saying, hey, listen, we have tested for the last 1 year, and then we have some practices to adopt within their own organization. They don't have to look outside, see what worked for them, and then continue to operate in that model. Then it becomes a hybrid model. The second category would be saying, listen, let's go back. A lot of leaders are looking at this, right? And it's individual driven, right? If the senior most person in the company decides, let's go back to how we were in the past, then everybody just follows that, right? So there is a possibility that some organization will go back to how they operated because they did not believe that work from home really increased the productivity or efficiency. Probably it could be because of various other factors, but they don't have time to sit and divide and see what triggered the efficiency loss or productivity loss. Rather, they say, get back to how we were before, because last year we made 20%, so we should go back to the 20% and get back to the normal, right? There will be another category who might very progressively think, let's just close down offices and move on, right? And work from home opportunity, because we have tested and it worked for us. So this could differ from industry to industry. Manufacturing could struggle work from home option, but there are companies which has both manufacturing and the technology, which would say we want a uniformity, so everybody to come to office. And somebody might say, let's do this different way. And to reflect on your question, Ashish, in terms of other countries and the MNCs, and some of the MNC leaders are sitting in the panel, we do see that this model is working for long, but now the thought process will expand in a way that can we make it as a new model and new operating model. So the thought will expand because we have tested for 1 year, right? So the fundamental question of how do we manage talent in the hybrid model or the future model, I have some thoughts and I'll just keep it in bullet points. We need to democratize talent, right? When we look at talent development, the way we did, right? And maybe we need to reimagine or reboot and reset. This is a great opportunity for us, right? And for everything, evolving stage, and Dr. T.V. Rao can speak about us because he's been pioneered scorecard we are talking about, right? So US has picked it up, but the person who invented scorecard or brought scorecard is Professor T.V. Rao. And he has an amazing past for us to leverage on. But in terms of democratizing talent, the way I would look at is we need to look talent development for future, not from what we learned in the past, because technology wasn't disrupting in the past. So our leaders in the past have taught us certain way of managing talent, but we don't have to adopt that completely for future, because future is going to be completely different, which the past leaders have not imagined, right? Even I do challenge, Professor Rao is here, but I do challenge the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do we really need that at this point in time? We could take some principles from there, but we don't have to refer to that all the time because things are changing and it's disrupting, right? So my thought is that democratize talent. What I mean by that is look at talent for future in the way we anticipate futures. And talent has to become a part of a culture. And culture is also evolving. You can't have one fixed culture and go with that, right? So how is culture evolving? How quick you are to adapt to culture, and then talent become part of a culture. And then in Indian context specifically, with so much of hierarchy we have, right? If you see the comparatively, having worked in the global setup in multiple countries, I do see the layers are very strong and more in India versus the other countries. So when you have layers, managers break or make, right? And how strong we are in our first line managers, and they are key for the organization success. And when we talk about talent development, we cannot forget the first line manager skill. And here, because we have multiple managers, those days, yeah, leader could impact the team, a large team I'm talking about, because they had direct access. Like again, going back to Professor Rao said, first name culture was there. We could connect to culture. Today, we are talking about 2,000 people in one organization, right? When I say organization, not the company, I'm saying individual functional organization, right? And or 1,000 people in the organization. So how do you remember? You can't. So you're relying on the second layer and third layer and fourth layer managers. So your direct access has reduced to larger extent, and you rely on the first line managers to build a culture and talent. I think that's where a dilution comes, and a great opportunity. We have to focus on that. And of course, analytically driven talent management is all the more important, going back to the digital, right? So today, earlier we were depending on some of the methodologies which helped us to get access to talent closer, and that is all depending on the track record. But today technology can enable us, right? Using technology, do we have right dashboards and which can help managers to take decisions? I have some more points, but I'll stop there, but we can build on that. So these are some of the thoughts comes to my mind as we get into hybrid model or future model.
Yeah, thanks, Chela. So, we are talking about work from home, virtual working, then hybrid model and all. I don't know how many policy HR will keep making now. When lockdown started, everybody was looking for, okay, please share work from home policy. And those actually who had work from home, it was not implemented. So they were wondering, okay, now should I prepare a new policy or should I actually implement this? Okay. And when it is developed now, today we are looking at more of, okay, how do I prepare a policy which is not work from home, but work from anywhere? And time will come when, we need to prepare a policy which is work from office. Because people will not coming to office, then if they are coming, then what they need to do, how they need to behave, what they need to supposed to do in terms of do's and don'ts, right? Okay. So thanks, Jayanti and Chela. I'm sure time will permit us to take one more question with the both of you. I go to Rosmin and Ashish. Fine. So here we started virtually work from home, and as I said in the beginning that when lockdown started, Rosmin, everybody was saying, fine, work will go on, yeah, but how do I ensure that I keep engaged my employee? that was the biggest challenging. We have seen people coming up with so many ideas, and then people reaching out to all the HR groups and saying, okay, I already implemented this, tell me something new. Yeah. So a lot of creativity was also taking place. So Rosmin and Ashish question is, please share some secret and mantras of, employee experience. I will also include the engagement in this. Yeah. I take the liberty to include the engagement when I say employee experience. And today when we say well-being and wellness is also part of employee experience actually, correct? So all this consolidation is taking place, correct? So please share some secret and mantra that how do we take care of employee experience in virtually remote hybrid model, or how we are going to take care if this scenario continues.
Thanks, Ashish, for that. It's a cliche that we all spend majority of our waking lives at work. But today, if you look at the way we are living, there's no difference between work and personal life because home has become office. And in this scenario, employee well-being and employee experience have become more relevant than it was earlier. And if we actually don't focus on employee experience or employee well-being, the productivity will go down, the employee morale is going to go down, and therefore it is not a smart strategy because it's a business case today that we actually build the employee experience. And as Jayanti rightly said in the beginning, that when you talk about employee experience, you need to look at it right from the time we hire an employee to the time we actually to the time an employee exits the system. And this creation of this employee experience is really vital for us to drive innovation, to drive commitment and high performance. And when you look at the important levers of employee engagement, if companies, the HR leaders and the managers don't work on this aspect, they're only going to hurt themselves. Now, when I look at an employee experience in the current pandemic scenario, while Jayanti spoke about how Standard Chartered is able to give, might in the new normal give 80% of people a hybrid workforce situation. Back at Schindler, our situation was very different. 90% of our workforce is actually on the field, either servicing escalators and elevators or installing elevators and escalators. Maybe the sales adapted to work from home and call up clients from home. But for the others who are actually going out to install and to service, despite the COVID pandemic, they still had to go out with all fears in their mind. If they will contract COVID, what will happen to them? But despite all this, they still had to venture out because they are the frontline employees. And I think in India, although it's still not considered like an essential service, all over the world, an elevator service is considered as an essential service. So pulling together all people, the different kinds of workforce, and still ensuring this employee engagement and employee well-being was really becoming difficult for us at Schindler initially. So first of all, what we did was we ensured that, we give the basics for all our employees. We ensured that for our field force, we give them safety, communicate to them. And this was a time when most of our field employees were also worried about job security because the reality industry was taking a hit. So people were quite worried, and actually job security concerns were too many. And for a company like us where all jobs cannot be remote, first thing we ensured the field staff were given safety. Then we created policies and employees to take care of them. We also ensured that transparency and communication is there right from the top. Now, while we may say that leadership is communicating from the top through town halls, through podcasts to people, but that communication will not suffice. This communication has to go down to every manager, because I primarily always believe that employee engagement finally boils down to the managerial experience that you get from your immediate manager. While it is cliched that any employee leaves the organization due to the manager, it's also the fact that the entire organization culture and experience is experienced through the manager. So we have to actually train our managers. So we run a biannual, in fact, manager feedback survey once in 2 years, where we actually have all people give upward feedback to their managers. So last year when we had this report, due to the lockdown, most of our field staff were at home. So we used this opportunity actually to tell our managers, look at some action plans that you can do. And this is the right time for you to build that employee manager interface, understand Where are we going wrong in terms of the managerial experience that you're giving? Are you being more directive? Are you being more pace setting, which are short-term measures? Can you really look at changing your managerial style to be more a coach, to really look at long
Were you able to hear Rosmin? Ashish, Chela? No. Navjeet,
We can hear you. I think we lost Rosmin.
yeah. That's what I just wanted to check.
Sure.
Okay, Rosmin, so there may be internet connection issue, Wi-Fi connection. I go to Ashish. Ashish, if she joined in between, both of you need to coordinate with each other. So question related to employee experience, engagement, mental health, wellness, well-being. Please share your input and what you're doing, your industry, some best practices.
Sure. I think I'll start with a little bit of explanation of how Aviva India operates, and just to have a context on. So we are a mixed kind of a place where 80% of my population is based out of 60, 70 locations in the country, and small offices, about 5 to 10 people, sometimes even lesser than that, and a maximum of 20 people outside the head office. So 80% of population is there, and they are field employees. They need to go out, meet customers, explain to them why life insurance is important. And life insurance has been a lot of push kind of a business where people need to go and explain, and then I think
Sorry, I
is
think my
bad.
connection got disconnected, some Wi-Fi issue. Again, a bane of working from home.
So Rajman, you want to continue, and I'll come back later.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think flexibility was something that we said that we need to introduce to employees at an immediate level in order to ease the needs, especially of childcare, family chores. And so what we did was we said that, we will, otherwise in field, what happens is there was no boundary or cutoff to the work and personal life. So we said from 8 to 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. is complete no work time, and no managers have to call up their employees. Then we also introduced something called a silent hour from 1 to 2. So why we introduced the silent hour was also because we said that people were having lunch along with working. People were sometimes not even getting time to have lunch because it was back-to-back meetings. So we actually said that let's introduce the concept of silent hour from 1 to 2, which really helped us, because then a lot of employees said they got, they got some assistance to either cook food or at least to have that time of break, where they are having some time to do their own work. Then a third thing that we introduced was that we said that the last Thursday of the month would be a no meeting day. So this again helped employees to actually have no meetings and actually focus, wear their thinking caps, and have some time to do their own work. Because today, if I can go to the next cubicle and tell my colleague that this is what I want you to do, or this is what I want to do, today I have to set up a MS Teams invite for about half an hour. So that's actually a lot of wastage of time that's happening, a lot of unnecessary meetings. And at the management team, we also decided that, any meeting that will happen should be only about decision making. It should not be about presenting the whole data. So we encourage that before 48 hours, can we actually send out pre-reads, reduce the number of meetings, because meetings were just becoming a part of life, day in and day out. Teams was just blocked without any break. So flexibility was something that we really did. Then I think one more thing that will really help the employee experience, and this is something that we're really working on even now, is that how do you really create that trusting environment? Because when you were working in office, managers could see that your employees are working. And here when everybody is working from home, somewhere, some managers still suspected, are your people really working, or are they doing some home chores? So somewhere, to create that trust element, we had to really coach our managers that you need to don the hat of trust. You need to have empathy. Even if a child comes into the video call or there's some background noise coming in, please don't become, don't really be hyper and don't really shout at your employee, because we need to understand that we have occupied the space at home. This is not office. And that is something that we've been trying to, educate our people managers. And from a development perspective, See, productivity cannot be the only objective. And so we ensured that development does not take a backseat during this pandemic time. As an organization, especially in the first 3 months when there was a complete national lockdown, we used this opportunity to actually do a lot of training initiatives for our field workforce. A lot of training programs which they otherwise wouldn't have ever attended, because anyways they were all at home having nothing to do, because they only have a phone, an iOS phone, which is connected to their a field link device and the technology which tells them about what they need to do, the service calls that come in. And therefore, it was a great opportunity for us to use that technology and that medium to create a culture of learning and give that upward trajectory of upskilling them and reskilling them. And another implication of this pandemic was that, a lot of our training programs were actually meant for classroom. We had to convert them immediately. So immediately what we did was just use the same presentations and decks and try to do learning, but we realized that it was not engaging. So then our learning and management team actually started working on developing content, developing learning journeys basis the needs, the upcoming needs of our employees, and started changing it so that even training and development becomes more productive, more effective for the employees. Then we also started up something called as Santulan, which was mainly a call center which took in calls for people who really were stressed out, were having a lot of issues, mental health issues, to have a counselor support. And this again proved to be very beneficial, because all the field forces who were sitting at home, they were confined in the four walls. They were never used to working from the four walls. For them, it was becoming very difficult, unlike people who were in the corporate offices working and could convert their work easily. For field staff, it was becoming very difficult. So these are some initiatives that we at Schindler embarked on to help better work-life balance, better employee well-being, and also ensure that there is good employee experience at the core of it.
Yeah, thanks, Rosamund. So I will ask Ashish to start. Yeah.
Sure. So, while Roshan was gone, I just started saying that I just want to give a context of Aviva so that we understand where we stand as an organization. And 60%, 80% of our population is in the field, and they have to go out and source business and talk to customers, at least pre-pandemic. That's how they were supposed to work, right? And it was felt that, you can never sell a life insurance without a person trusting you or a customer trusting you before they even trust the product that we are selling, or trust the company that they are buying the product from in life insurance space. So we had to really undergo a lot of thinking and change when the pandemic started. And obviously it was a shock, like for most of us, as Jayanti mentioned, that it was taboo to work from home, right? Even in our industry, it was considered impossible. And just to bring uniformity, the other 20% were in head office, but they were always supposed to come to office, because that's how we wanted to support each other. So I think I'll give my answer in three parts. First part is about, what are the strategic direction you can look into when you think about employee mental well-being, wellness. And second part is about how you can learn more about it, or rather take that first part. And the third is, what has Aviva done in recent 1.5 years to overcome these challenges, or something that you can learn from. So I think first what we did was we started doing a lot of employee connect, just to clearly, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, to understand what they really need. And what we learned amazingly was the people said that we will manage work, don't worry about that. Help us with the other aspects of life, which is when we have to deal with things we are not aware of how to deal with things. For example, there were male employees who said, we don't know how to manage kids. And surprisingly, that's a truth of our families in India. They said, we don't know what to do. And, my wife knew, but then she's all on calls. I have to manage my kid. I don't know what to do. So can you help me with that? Can you help me with my personal finance? I'm really worried about my personal finance. If I lose my job, do I have enough savings to last the pandemic? These are the kind of questions that started to come up. And we realized very quickly that people are worried. People will understand work. They will really, we don't need to teach them again, because they're the same employees, right? They're not new employees. We really need to help them the stuff that they are not accustomed to, managing the chores at the home, cleaning the house at times, managing kids. These are the things that these people are not used to. And I'm not going to say this is only for male employees, even for female employees. You get used to the help that is around at home, be it elderlies at home and stuff like that, or any external help, but you get used to that. So strategically, if I have to give you some direction, I think the first thing I will have to tell you is that when you look at creating a digital workplace, or a place that where your employees are not going to come to office, don't do it with a short term or a short mind frame. Do it for a long haul, so that the things that you will start creating will have a real impact on people. Because if you do it for a year or two, they are going to fall flat. We tried it, it didn't work, right? And whenever we started thinking in a long-term fashion, things started to fall in place automatically. Whether we use it for 10 years or not is a different story, but think that you are going to use it for 10 years. Right now, we're also thinking about going to a new office where we already said that the seats are going to be 40% less. So we're already thinking in long-term fashion. We're not going to think in a short-term fashion saying, okay, for 1 year, we don't need this office because everyone's working from home. No. Second is look at striking a right balance between human interaction with your employees and the AI interaction. I think and prioritize emotional connect, be it your managers or your HR folks. I have given a mandate to my HR team to talk to all employees, even if that means a 2 minutes or a 1 minute call with them. They need to know that you care. They need to know that they still belong to an organization. 1 year back, coming to office was enough because you belong to a place. The sense of belongingness was there. Today, when you're sitting at home, it is only screen in front of you. You have not touched the office for last 12 months. Your manager speaks to you as he speaks to you virtually, not meeting you. You're not meeting your colleagues. How do they know that they belong to this place? So what are you bringing to bring that uniformity in to make sure that they feel that they belong to this organization called Aviva Life Insurance? And that's really important for employees going forward. And that's going to be really important even further down the line when people are permanently going to work from home. Now I'm going to give some examples of what we did. I think we started this campaign called Work Feel Happy campaign. And the whole idea of this campaign was to teach people about their personal finance, teach people about how to stay fit physically. Third was about how do you keep your mental wellness in check, and what are the things that you can do to boost your morale and be more happy. I know it's something that is difficult to quantify. I'm more happy than my last day, but we did a lot of research and we put a lot of science behind what can really improve your general level of happiness. And there is a theory behind about what a general level of happiness is there and how can you improve it. So we put a lot of science behind it. We ran this campaign, and this has got nothing to do with anything with your office work. It was purely about maintaining your physical, mental health, and your personal finance. If you take care of these aspects, employees took care of the work. And one of the examples that I want to give is one of the practice that came out in the pandemic last year was this one employee said, you know what I did, because I need to make sure that the customer knows I am a Aviva Life Insurance employee. I did a video of myself giving my pitch as a sales employee, showing my ID card, and then WhatsApping it before even calling the customer. And that kind of became a practice, because now you can't really knock the home and knock the door and go into the homes, and calling everyone endlessly is going to be unproductive. So send that WhatsApp 10 seconds, 20 seconds pre-read before, or a pre-see before. And then if the person wants to talk to you, because obviously there's a lot of consciousness about insurance that's come up, you suddenly started seeing these virtual connects going on, and we started selling the product virtually. So we took care of the other aspect of the employees, what we listened to them that they need our help from, and then they took care of the work. It's something that's really amazing that came out. Apart from that, what we did was we collaborated with companies that offer free counseling to our people, and we ensured that people are aware that we are giving away free hours where people can talk to a mental health counselor. And we stopped making it a tab. We said, this is everyone who needs, please call. Even if you don't need, just call to check whether you're okay or not. And we didn't joke about it. And our CEO said this, and our leadership team said this, that we are going to call because we also want to understand where we stand today. This is a very unnatural habitat for us to stay in the confined walls and not go out and be fearful of our friends and families' health every day, every hour. And that kind of brought about changes, and people have written to me personally in my company, said, that half an hour changed my life. I could sleep well tonight. And that just gives you a feel that, you're doing something that is really helping people and really helping your organization. We gave a lot of app-based tools to people, micro steps tool, which people can use on a daily basis to learn and interact and talk to each other. And we are also doing some webinars. Some interesting ones are where we did a webinar where we had the maximum attendance last year, was a webinar on how to manage kids under the age of 3.